Are you ready for your new favorite show? And you have to have faith. Just a heads up. You're not going to be super impressed with Shadow and Bone out of the gate. You'll stick around because, as we're going to discuss, it has an amazing cast. But you have to watch through episode 5. It's 8 episodes. But when you watch episode 5, you'll be hooked, as was I. Although I was hooked earlier, but I'm just warning you, if you're like, this isn't as great as Grace said it was, watch through episode 5, and then there will be no turning back. So I was not prepared for how good this show is. While it appears, though, that some of you really love the books. I've been tweeting about it a little bit since, as soon as I watched it this past weekend, I was like, oh my God, I have to tweet about it a little bit. And some of you were like, I love this series of books. And I was like, wow. You know, it's incredible where there are pockets of fandom. And that's the job of development executives, to find those pockets of fandom and then spread those stories to the rest of us. But yeah, I'd never heard of Shadow and Bone. No idea what it was. And while I didn't get a chance to react to the trailers that were released at very odd, bad times, they kept coming up at times that were like they were overshadowed by something else. So I hope that word of mouth really helps this show, as it should. But I did see the trailers, and I was like, wow, Netflix seems to be spending a lot of money on this, so I should check it out. And wow, it did not disappoint. And while I was drawn in by the show's amazing budget, the real star of Netflix's Shadow and Bone is casting director Suzanne Smith, who, by the way, has cast many other shows where she did not do a particularly good job. But for some reason, the stars aligned for Shadow and Bone. And she found a cast of almost entirely new actors that I would wager will soon be joining your favorite big screen blockbusters. Although Victoria Bendretti still hasn't gotten anything big, which is, to me, mind-boggling. But if there's any justice in the world, these people will soon be joining Marvel, DC, Star Wars, etc. Jessie Mei Li, these are my favorites. Jessie Mei Li, Freddy Carter, Kit Young, and Callahan Skogman. Wow, that's very good. Those are very, very good. Amita Suman, Archie I feel bad saying like not everyone's amazing because I love the whole cast, but I'm just telling you who I think are going to be the most popular. Now, Amita Suman, Archie Renau, and Danielle Galligan also make very strong impressions, but I think their characters still need some time to come into their own. They don't pop quite like the other characters do. And that's a combination of their roles, and I think the actors just haven't really found their groove. They don't have the same electric charisma that other group has. I will say that Howard Charles and Zoe Wanamaker both pop, but they don't have the smolder of their co-stars. But I hope that this leads for more work for both of them as well. I think fans will especially swoon over Carter, Young, and Skogman. When you watch episode 6, he has a pretty sexy scene where he reveals a physique that could rival any current big screen superhero. He's ready to go! You don't even need to give him a trainer. Now, I wasn't sure about Mei Li at first, as her performance is more understated, and I think you won't be sure about her as well when you start the show. But by the end of the season, I feel she's perfectly cast and a very strong lead. She's not a Mary Sue. No, Mary Sue or Gary Stu's on this show, which is great. In fact, they all have a lot of problems. And I can't imagine anyone else in the lead role. She's fantastic. She and Renau, interestingly enough, are playing characters who are part Shu, which in this world means Asian. And so the show ends up having a rip from the headlines quality, unfortunately, because of the terrible Asian hate that's going on right now in the real world. Now here they have, comments made by other characters and some World War II style posters about how Shu are the enemy. But there are no other Asian characters, really. There's Amita Suman, who I believe was referred to as Shu, although it wasn't made totally clear. But there aren't really any other Asian characters in season 1, so I was wondering where the Shu originate from. I hope this is explored more in season 2. Now, what about Ben Barnes? I'm sure a few of you are curious. Because Ben Barnes, he's been around the block a couple of times in Hollywood by now, and he's managed to pick up a couple of fans along the way. But even though the media made a big deal about him, nothing's ever quite panned out for him. Narnia didn't really work out. His role in The Punisher show didn't really work out. So I think that even though he's amazing here, like so good, I think some producers might be a little nervous about him still. So I don't know if this will lead for more work for him. But he's fantastic. I'm glad he had those other failures because he was available for this show to anchor it. And it's the best thing I've ever seen him do. He is perfectly cast, and he's a big part of what makes this series work. Although, to Mei Li's credit, she holds her own against him quite well as a newcomer. Now again, fair warning, when Shadow and Bone started, I was only moderately impressed. And at first I was like, this is fantasy Riverdale, or another goth show like Sabrina, which I did enjoy, although I bailed on the last season, which I hear was a train wreck. But Sabrina, while good, was very small in scope. It wasn't something that I think you could enjoy unless you were like into that kind of show. But this, as Shadow and Bone continued, I became more and more impressed and felt it could be the kind of show that Netflix wants it to be. And again, episode 5 has so many great twists and turns that blew my mind and put a smile on my face. That was when I said to myself, I actually said this to myself, this show is something special. It's so good. Its first season ends on a cliffhanger. So come on, season 2, like several cliffhangers. And again, it's 8 episodes that are about an hour each, and I watched them all in 24 hours. It's a binge show for sure. I mean, I only took breaks because life demanded it, but if I could have watched it 8 hours straight through, I would have. It's really, really good. It's addictive. Now, yes, one thing that frustrated me as the show began was that it kind of rips off Avatar: The Last Airbender with its Grisha, who can control, with similar moves, fire, wind, and the body. They're called heart-renderers, I think. And there are rare exceptions for some Grisha who can control other things, and a couple of times that makes for interesting surprises, so I won't ruin it here. But then, of course, there's the whole core of the story is that, Ben Barnes can control shadow and darkness, while Mei Li can control light. But they're very unique, Grisha. So as they told us more about the Grisha, I was like, okay, I guess it's its own thing. Kind of not, but it's okay. I'll allow it, especially because it's so well done. And it's also very similar to The Witcher and to Game of Thrones, although it's strong Eastern European flavor, particularly Russian, which I thought was an interesting choice, and some steampunk elements, which I loved. They help it seem somewhat original. You're like, okay, I guess it's its own thing. And also, I'm a big fan of Dr. Zhivago and the animated Anastasia, so I really appreciated these Russian-esque elements in the show. But again, what really makes this show work are the characters and the actors who play them. And I guess the world building. There's some other things, but the cast is front and center. The cast is so good. Also, what helps is that there are several romances percolating on this show, and they're all very, very sexy, very smoldering. I'm interested in each and every one of them. Also, this show has great representation across the board, including Kit Young's LGBT sharpshooter, which is from the books, and they kept that element and they did it really, really well. But he's not a token character. That was something that's only revealed later about him on the show. And, it's not his defining. He's not just there to be the token gay character on the show. He's a fully fledged and fully realized character, and he's fabulous. And the budget, it doesn't hurt either. Even though the cast ended up outshining the budget was a nice second thing to have. The VFX for everyone's powers are very well done. They have gorgeous locations, and they have sets, really impressive sets that have been built. And I also really liked the things that they realized for the different ways to travel through the fold. I'm not going to give anything away, but those vehicles were really cool. Very good world building. Very, very good. I mean, it took some getting used to. It wasn't done as well as I think it could have been done. Like in Avatar, they all wear different colors. Thank you very much. So here sometimes they would put on the screen where you were, but I would have preferred if they'd done it on a map, a little bit like Game of Thrones, because I was like, East Ravka, West Ravka, I don't know, who's on what side again? I think the show would benefit from maybe a little bit more explanation there. But it didn't bother me. It just was like a minor nitpick. Now, Sean Levy produces Stranger Things for Netflix, and he's a producer on this show as well. And I think Shadow and Bone could be another huge hit for the streaming service at the level of I don't know if Stranger Things, but The Witcher, Umbrella Academy. I think it could end up being that big. I mean, it's going to be a slow burn because this show's coming out of nowhere, and I don't think they've done the best job advertising it. I don't think they've really been able to get across what they have here, but I think hopefully enough people will check it out and people will do the work for Netflix, which is kind of Netflix's advertising model, unfortunately. They're like, you tell people about it. And we're like, okay, we will. So I'm doing my part here. make sure you watch Shadow and Bone. You will not be disappointed. Eric Heiserer is the creator and showrunner here, and while he has a very strong resume, he's, he did Arrival, right? He wrote that. But this is the most impressive and commercial thing he's ever done. I never would have guessed, based on the other projects that he's written, that he would be capable of putting this together. But he did, and he nailed it. He did a great job. So again, this show is full of great twists and surprises. Don't let anybody ruin for them. Romances, world building, mythology, so cool. And I hope it doesn't take too long for us to get season 2. I want it like now. I wish they were already in production. That's how good the cliffhanger ending is. So make sure you watch it. Make sure you tell other people about it, because this must continue. All right, so that's my review of Shadow and Bone. Share your thoughts down below. Don't put any spoilers, especially if you've read the books. Don't do it. And of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.